asking some other things there. Right? He's mentioning over joint ventures, then he's talking about acquisition and greenfield investments. So let's sort this out, and that means that from now on, your time for this class is devoted only to get wonderful piece of work written, because I've covered essentially everything is in the assessment. Okay? So, do you have a question?
Yes, the class on Saturday will be with you?
The class on Saturday will be with me. You bring all your draft today or by Friday, then you will get extensive feedback, because I'll collect all of them today or by Friday. Friday, a reasonable time, it can be by 6 o'clock. And
is it for all the questions?
it's up to you. I can look at 1, I can look at 2, I can look at 4, whatever it is. Whatever you can produce in this amount of time, I'm going to look at that and give you extensive feedback on Saturday. Then, on Saturday, what I will do, I will basically give you an overview again of what are the main concepts that should be necessarily there. So we make sure that we tick the list and all the things are there. We make sure that we understood exactly what these questions want from us. And then next week, we don't see each other, because there is this wonderful thing of the Vivas, and I'll see you, but in a different format, not here. You will be presenting. Then I'll see you on Thursday as well. Lovely week. So either Wednesday or we do the first part of your assessment. Yeah.
So Wednesday there's no risk project, no your class.
I don't know about Dave class, but for sure, no, there is no, because we start at 4, we finish at 9, and we start
your
at
class is also cancelled though.
next Wednesday. Yeah, because you present to us and there's the assessment, right? So the first real assessment, let's do it this way. The first grade, the real grade you get. Then I believe that we have 1 more week to check, Wednesday, and then for you, I'll be dead until February. So forget about me, because I think I gave you enough time, enough extra hours. So for me, don't send email with draft, whatever. I'm not checking anything, because I was clear from the beginning. Extra classes, it's up to you drafting. Whatever you submit, I'm gonna grade. So you forget about me, and we see in the wonderful new 17, hopefully. I'm not dying over Christmas. And for finance, okay? So there is 1 more chance, and that's it.
So on Friday, the last feedback, the last time we can get feedback from you is on Friday?
No. This week, tomorrow is holiday, thanks God, the revolution. So then, well, I need holiday, just like, thanks God. So then, on Friday is the last time you can submit today, you can give me the paper, or you can give it to me by Friday, everything you have, okay? Then I'll go home and I'll do my own work, which is actually going through all your stuff, and the day after, which is this Saturday, we have a class, which is a very important class, because it's the last one we have to discuss about things. So it's the last one, then it's done, because I've been teaching this, I'm kind of tired now, it's 10 weeks, so it's okay. So, then basically it's finished, right? Because next week you have the Vivas, and the week after I give you 1 more chance to show me something, and I'll check it, and then it's finished. So I'm not going to check anything by email. So I said clearly from the beginning that there is only 1 exception, which is Andre, because of work issues and blah blah and commitment and so on and so on. That's it. End of the story.
So in 2 weeks,
basically maximum late. After that, as I said, I'm there for you. Okay? You submit, and I'll tell you what is exactly the format you have to submit, how it looks like the cover page, which is the same as Bruce, just with a different title, so you know that already, but the old things, turn it in, your name, the number of words of your assignment, the usual stuff, what is the cover page, how it looks like, and so on. Okay? And then done. And then we see each other for international finance.
And when is the submission for?
The submission is the 5th of December, so it's done. finished the semester. That's very quick. Okay? So then, I know, sorry, but that's what it is. I told you from the beginning, it seems nothing, but then we'll pile up all together. Bruce will give you a chance for a draft. Normally, his policy is one chance for a draft. I don't know what he said to you, but normally in the past it used to be one, maybe two, and that's it. You submit. His part probably is due after Christmas, so you have time to work on it on Christmas time. And probably you will have to submit as well the CPLM. And then probably you have to submit the proposal altogether. So all at the same time. 3 assignments, 1 shot. Okay? So it will be most likely, I believe. The only one is due before is mine. Okay? And then it's finished. So you get the grades after a month. About, yeah. So most likely you'll be already sitting in international finance and you don't know if you're passed or no. Yeah, that's normally the situation. It's very common. So you might get in March. The board normally is towards the end of, well, mid-February. Mid-February, so I expect normally it takes like a week to compile them. So it's about, yeah, let's say beginning of March, you get your transcripts with the numbers and that's it. Okay, and it's all done. Okay? So, yeah.
Just a question, what if we don't like pass the, let's say...
If you don't pass, what is going to happen is that it's going to happen something, as normally I say to students, not really pleasant, because you get an email from me, a personal one. And if you see an email which is personally directed to you, it means something is wrong.
Maybe Stefano is not dead for you.
Is not dead, and is calling you back to redo something. Okay, might be doing something different and so on. So you receive a very personal, not very nice, but it's like, yeah. So, but I write you personally, individually. So it's not that it's a common thing, like I write you because of the privacy and so on. So I contact you individually and say, we do have a problem. So we need to solve the issue. And this is the plan for solving the issue. It means resubmitting, retaking, redoing, whatever. Things. Sometimes happen. Yes. Because it depends how you fail. You remember what I said at the beginning? Remember, if we fail, we need to be decent in failure. Because if we score beyond a certain level, we have to restudy the whole thing. Because normally you are given like 25 days, 30 days. So this will overlap, I can tell you already in advance, because that's normally happening, with your oral assessment of finance, where I have an exam with you and I ask you a question and you answer. So if you fail this one, I can tell you already in advance that, because it happens every year, is your assessment for this is overlapping, is always in the same week as you have the oral exam with me in finance, because that's the first part of the assessment. So let's try to do a nice job here, okay? Because
But I suppose if we bring you all our drafts before submission, chance of failing.
Let's say that you dramatically reduce the chance of failing and you increase the chance of getting good grades because, you know, like that. So, okay, so let's go back to the question. So we sort this out and then we focus on other things. Okay, Greenfield. Greenfield investment.
So we're talking about question 1 now.
Yeah. So greenfield investments are basically what? Are types of FDIs where a parent company start a new venture in a foreign country by constructing new operational facilities from the ground up. Normally, as a consequence of this, this creates long-term plan for jobs. So long-term plans for job. By hiring new employees. Okay? So, is it clear what's happening here? I have a country, I don't know, another country, A, B, this one starts a new venture here, but it constructs literally the facilities. Okay? So the whole investments here, pounds, whatever it is, euros, whatever you want, is basically aiming at constructing the new thing, okay? So the new facilities will be constructed and owned by A. So it means that the old buildings will be owned by them. So normally this is coincident with a very long-term plan in which I do plan actually to hire a lot of people. So when I have a multinational enterprise which is working in this basically direction, is deciding for a very high level of commitment. As you can imagine, this is very expensive. Only few really can afford this kind of investment. Is really a long-term commitment in terms of building not only the facilities, but also the hiring plans and so on and so on. Normally this comes through an agreement with Gulf in B. Okay? Which is something that is related to the taxations, fees, but not just that actually, even including like the regulation to be applied to the new workers and so on and so on. And so on.
Incentives, I think government can provide incentives for that.
Absolutely. Everything which is connected to the, normally governments are very happy about this because of course the burden of the cost is on A. So from the government side point of view, the big advantage is that, you know, like kind of they put their own money for it. Also, when we're talking about emerging countries, the big advantage is that automatically you get on your soil, like in your geographic area, basically new advanced technologies, buildings, facilities and so on, which constitute in some sense an improvement with your respect kind of set of assets and industry you have at the moment. So governments normally tend to do everything they can to facilitate, to smoothen the process from a legal point of view, from a financial point of view in terms of taxation, and also sometimes they even bend over in some sense regulation concerning labor and workers and so on and so on. Okay? Okay, this is the green field. Now, just to be, for the sake of being very educated, normally this one is distinguished from brown field. You don't have it there in the question, but it's brown field, just to be very educated. So if you hear this word, brown field, in this specific case, the company doesn't own the facilities. The facilities are owned normally by the government, and the company gets a privileged access to these facilities in terms of maybe even ownership. So it's called brown because it's not totally green, it's not totally new. There is existing already a set or an industrial site which is in place. might be renewed, might be developed further, and so on and so on. So the government is actually very happy to get rid of those and say, oh, by the way, you want to produce your cars? We have this industrial size that was used by whatever, Skoda, and so on and so on. You are Volkswagen, you can take over, and you can do your own development, you can actually do whatever you like with this, we give you this, this, and this, and this. That's called technically, in finance, brownfield. It's again a form of FDI, but of course we don't start from zero. Basically, that's the main difference there. And there might be different way of sharing the ownership of this between the government. So it comes into the contract between the government and the multinational enterprise. Now, let's see some of the advantages that actually this greenfield might offer us. Let's put here some advantages. The greenfield, obviously, because of the nature of the FDI, it's in some sense the easiest way to transfer economy of scale. Because it transfers all in block scope of production, so the productivity part, but also the marketing, finance, research, development, and occasionally, sometimes, even transportation and logistics. Also, this is definitely an advantage, right? So when we talk about transferring economy of scale, we talk about all this bulk of things, right? So the total transferring of the actual productivity, but also all the knowledge and business knowledge and management which is related to it. So marketing, the financial management, the research and development, the transportation and logistics, and so on and so on. That's definitely one big block of the advantages we have here. Copy this? Yeah? Okay, so let's go on. Second. Two. Greater control. Why greater control? Well, because it's not a portfolio investment, it's truly ownership. So it means that the headquarters, the parent company, really owns the facility. So they have full control of the production, of the marketing, and everything else, including all the financial management, risk exposures, blah, 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 and so on. So there is a greater control of everything because, justification, technically speaking, because is now a portfolio investment. That's the reason. Also, normally because of their nature, they create and they go along with long-term strategy. So so it means that if there is a long-term strategy, another advantage is the high level of commitment to the market and the country. And I'll put in brackets, eventually the country. High level of commitment and eventually commitment to the country. Also, a big advantage of this type of approach is because of the nature of the type of investment is that you have full or almost full control of your brand, obviously. Also, because of the way in which it's designed, you have control on your stuff, which is another thing, which is the HR point of view, right? Control of the stuff.
Thứ 6.
Yes. Huh?
And by stuff, you mean assets, employees,
Everything.
finance, everything.
But mainly this is the employees. The employees. The facility are your own facility,
So
but this is the controlling people.
So the company can apply their own policies.
Absolutely. That's the idea, is that internally they can apply their leadership styles, management styles, their own policies, their own recruitment policies, everything that has to do.
But it still has to be in compliance with the government regulation.
It has to be in compliance with the government regulation, but as I said, it depends on the size of the, for example, the kind of investment and so on. As I said before, sometimes government tends to be a bit more flexible because it's a lot of money coming in, right? So, and they like a lot of money coming in, right? So, that's the idea. So, for example, hiring, firing, and so on, it might be subject to some exceptions that are made or are kind of dealt directly with the big enterprise company. So maybe among the different conditions in the platform, when they negotiate the entrance or the entry in that specific market, the company might say, I know that you have this idea and so on, but you know, our training policy implies 3 months and so on, and I want to be able, for example, to get rid of people after 3 months if I'm not happy. I know you have a law which says 6, but can we come to an agreement on this, and so on, and so on, and all this type of discussion and so on. We're talking about, obviously, millions and millions and millions of dollars, not peanuts, okay? So we can actually kind of have a discussion and so on. Normally, it depends on which country you are. Unions step into the discussion if they are not too happy with the agreement, these kind of things. For example, in Italy, if you do one thing like this, you have a strike for 3 months and you don't do anything. That's the reason why nobody wants to do greenfield in Italy.
Or not allowed unions.
Eh?
Not allowed unions. I think, no, not, I think.
No, I know.
But if
you have situation in which, for example, in the case of Italy, for example, unions has to be there because of the constitutional kind of part. So there's no discussion about it. It's a constitutional right of the unions to be part of that bargaining
Chị
power.
đến muộn không biết nó nói từ
So you have
như
to
nào nữa.
come to kind of, well, that's one of the main reasons, for example, why this type of investments in Italy are very hot. Because the power of the unions is extremely high, and their negotiation power is known to be very Russian style. We don't negotiate. So, okay? So they sit at the table and they simply say with no. That's how they start. You kidding, but it's really called in negotiation theory, it's called Russian style. No, I'm not kidding. It's called Russian style of negotiation. When you sit and you open by, no, it's called Russian style of negotiation. So in negotiation theory, it's called Russian style. So the unions normally they open with a classic Russian style of negotiation, which is saying no. Whatever you want, no. Otherwise, typical Russian style of negotiation in negotiation theory, in game theory is, otherwise, we actually threaten you to do even worse. We boycott your product that are imported here. That's a typical game theory Russian style, right? So that's what you do. So then, of course, the counterpart is telling you, okay, okay, hold on. I'm gonna have a training instead of 3 months, 4 months. No! We are gonna boycott you here, and so on. So they negotiate 5 months instead of 6. Yes, we can find an agreement and so on. That's a classic. It's a typical.
Extortion.
No, it's a negotiation.
It's an ultimatum from which you won't step down, and you have a constitutional right to do so.
It's up to you. You can lose your money. I mean, it's up to you, right? But it's a classic. It's in negotiation theory. It's called Russian style of negotiation. You always present the worst possible scenario in a way that your adversary is going to pick the weakest one. That is the one that you want that their person is going to pick. So it's a classic. It's a known kind of negotiation style. Sometimes you have to do it, sometimes you don't do it, and so on. But that's a concept. Okay. So is it clear all of this? So. Yanis, does it make sense? Everything, control over the stuff, control of your brand.
Yeah, this makes sense, but I'm a little bit confused. So greenfield means when the company enters and builds
the facility from the beginning. Yeah.
And
brownfield
when
is
government gives something which was
there is already an existing factory here, and this is existing already in the country. So I'm a company A, and I'm saying, contacting your government and saying, okay, you know, we actually have found that you have that site which is partly owned by the government or other owners and so on and so on. What's your plan for that one? We would be interested in actually kind of investing into the development of that one. Are you happy with that one? Yes, we are, because of course it's a cost. Of course the government is always interested in brownfield, right? So it gets rid of the expenses. So I said, okay, so you can take it in whatever kind of contract they agree. Might be shared ownership, might be I give you the building but you develop it, blah blah blah, and so on. And basically they enter.
And there's already employers.
It's already like pre-existing. It can be a totally dismissed or it can be like some sort of out-functioning thing. But it's not fully operational, otherwise it would be an acquisition.
Why would the companies prefer greenfield as opposed to brownfield if they can just buy facilities that are already there and just develop them as opposed to constructing them from the scratch?
Because it costs at least 3 times more.
Okay.
That's good enough.
But also I think it can be that greenfield has new technologies. Brownfield can be quite old property and old conditioning, maintenance.
Greenfield is the most expensive thing you can do. Greenfield actually is something really, really, really expensive and is normally the last ratio in your FDI. Let's put it this way. So you always want to, in some sense, reduce cost. There is normally greenfield when you have high-tech stuff, for example, where it's very difficult to adapt an existing industry to new or very new, actually, technology and so on. So that's a specific case. So all the high-tech industry and so on is normally kind of designed around greenfield and so on. But in general, for the heavy industry and so on, we normally try to recycle what we have because it's less expensive, and especially if that place has a long-standing tradition in that area. So, for example, if I have to come here and I know that Czech Republic has a long tradition in building trucks or whatever it is, cars and so on, I might prefer brownfield and brownfield because I know that in some sense I'm meeting a tradition which is already a long tradition in terms of technological development and so on, and the dismissed areas won't be so bad.
Sure. It's not always necessarily the government is involved, right?
Not always the.
It's always necessarily the government is involved in the brownfield because you may have a
No.
company bankruptcy,
Yeah.
and you just basically your investment is going to the existing property.
Well, in that specific case, yes. Even though in that case, technically, normally we call formally for an acquisition. Financial speaking, is a real takeover. Okay? Does make sense? So this one, in some sense, you will see that. Okay, let's put here what is the last advantage, and then we see the disadvantages. Of course, number one is it's very expensive. So 7 at least. Another thing is the fact that this type of approach to FDI, it requires long-term relationship with governments, which is always good. Which is already excellent development. So I've always like an excellent kind of relationship with the governments, long-standing one, and so on and so on. Okay, yeah. Okay, so let's see some of the disadvantages. Where of course number one would be it's too expensive.
So never mind.
Yeah. No. You want to say something?
High cost.
High cost. Yes, that's number one. Obviously, normally disadvantages is that it's really expensive to do this. Here, this very expensive.
Just hypothetically, do you think Walmart could have afforded it to Mexico?
For Walmart, the issue is not really about being able to afford it or not.
No, I'm not talking strategically. I'm just saying purely financially, they could afford it.
Easily.
Oh.
That's not the issue for them. But there is a risk there, which is a huge risk, which is given by efficiency issue and cultural differences. It's too different. They wouldn't do that. They would do that in Canada, but they wouldn't do it in Mexico, obviously.
Just question, greenfield always for me like you will get into the ground and we will build on top of that. What about, for example, here in Lidl? You have a chain of the shops, and usually they tend to build their own shops on the ground, basically not using any infrastructure. Is it kind of infrastructure, or is it basically looking to like a really huge, basically like
it's brownfield. It's already existing. It's already existing.
But I think Lidl is usually building the new shops, basically constructing the villages and so on. Again, you have hundreds of them, but basically you get into the ground.
Yeah.
And you will build basically you have like a same architecture of the buildings for you as a Lidl. Is this mean like a greenfield, or is something like a massive car manufacturer?
Yeah.
Thousands of people, whatever, or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know what was the company, but I think like a year ago, some big company wanted to build something in
Warehouse?
Was it
Amazon? Yeah, they wanted to build a warehouse.
Logistics center.
Yeah.
Logistics center.
And Bernard didn't want it. They didn't want the job for people, so they didn't do it eventually.
It's a bit more complex than that. I mean,
It was even hard. It was even a hard yeah, in Bernard, it was. But I think if you want to live close to the warehouses, you have a ground, you have houses, and who wants to live there? There's a lot of jobs, but
well, there is the
That's what they suggested.
okay. That in concerning to I don't know, specifically Amazon is not something I would consider as an example of management, but the it's probably the worst one in the world. But I mean, talking precisely about management, not revenue. Okay, financially speaking, I'm talking about management. But there are many issues. Some of them are related, for example, to the fact that building new sites might have a huge impact on the environment, might have logistics, like for example Amazon requires to, might have a huge impact in terms of redirecting traffic and so on and so on. You might actually have a huge impact on the people living there, right? So you have also to understand what is the other side of it and saying, would you like to be flooded with trucks
Yeah.
and things and so on, going on 24 hours a day, blah blah, every single day, but your son will have a job? Maybe not. I'll ask my son to buy a car and travel to Prague and find a job, right? So, you know what I mean, like kind of, yeah. So,
it would be the example of the greenfield investment.
if they build from zero, yes, absolutely. That's a kind of classic example, yes. Yeah. You want to?
I was just listening.
Oh, okay. So that's so there might be the huge impact on the environment, especially when it comes to I don't know, big warehouses and so on, like Amazon and so on, or like distribution centers and big things and so on. So on. You have to think about the impact on the urban area and what is the impact of traffic, cars, trucks, and so on and so on. So in the place, for example, where I live, they didn't want to build a school.
What?
Yes, a school. Because the issue was that having the school there, so we had the petition, well, we had their petition, I wasn't part of this, but they had a petition, obviously, because it seems to be insane, but they had a petition saying that, of course, parents twice a day go there and take their kids into the school. It's going to be probably, I don't know, like this one, 300-400, and going and coming, and so on and so on. This will increase dramatically the traffic jam in that specific area. And secondly, increase the pollution, obviously because of that. Third one, increase the sound pollution because of cars going on and so on and so on. Of course, we collect signatures because we don't want a school. So I'm not surprised that a warehouse that implies like trucks and so on is not welcome in a place, right? So, yeah.
But the school is there, the teacher, no?
Yeah, the school now is there. Well, because there was somebody, like with some brain in the CPO saying, yeah, sure, just collect the signature. Anyway, so, yeah, because they needed a school, right? So otherwise what we do? I mean, the paradox was, and that tells you a lot about people reasoning and how they think, is that, oh, no, that's absolutely great. So we don't build a school here, but you know what? We take our car every morning and we drive to Prague, Kolovrati, and we put them in a school. Yeah, so you're driving anyway, moving around and so on, so you have to do this and so on. So, yeah, so the mayor of the town said, yeah, sure, collect the signature. Anyway, so when I do greenfield, I have to think as well that I enter a completely new market, a new culture, a new structure, and so on. So competition can be difficult to overcome. Because I'm playing with players that are already there. What is the name of those?
What?
The players already there?
Incumbents?
Incumbents. Both the word. That's what you're gonna write in the assignment. Terminology is important. Incumbents. That's how they're called. Those already present in the industry there. So they know the industry environment, they know the industry structure, they know the rivalry better than me because I'm entering, I'm a new one and so on. Third one, it's very long to set up. And not just because the building companies are pretty bad, simply because it takes long time to overcome the old legislation and so on and so on. It's very long, actually, commitment. Yes?
Can I have a question? Are we going to the master speaker or no?
No, we are not.
Okay.
So, no, we are not. So,
Thank you.
at the moment we have better things to do.
Yeah.
Just passing this class.
You're kind of our master speaker
least
for us, this is fun.
Huh?
You're kind of our master speaker now.
See?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good try. So, barriers to entry can be costly. So you have certain industry and certain like areas where actually the barriers to entry are very expensive. So this increase already something that is very expensive, so it's an issue. And finally, God's regulation may put enemies in disadvantage in the short term. What does it mean? It means simply that, for example, let's suppose that you want to enter a country and that country has a certain type of job regulation, but is in the process of actually renewing or reforming or revising the job regulations. For example, that you can fire after 30 days trial and without additional cost. So is the law coming? Will come, but in the meantime you need to be there because of strategic reasons. So in the short term, I'll be at a disadvantage because I will increase my cost and I need to cope with those because strategically I need to be there. So sometimes I need to have these extra expenses because for me it's more important to be there than actually paying those extra costs. So this can put me in disadvantage in the short term.
I see maybe another is, for example, if something happened in Turkey or Venezuela, basically these countries, some law change and you have a facility and you have an American company basically to leave and leave everything there because you cannot operate.
For example, that's another classic example. Even
money out.
yeah, even though
But that's if they're owning the company, then they actually like kick them out of the country. If they're actually owning, if they're not like.
government can do whatever they like.
It's the country
They can take over. A government technically can, from today to tomorrow, decide that those facilities become their own facilities.
Well, that's what happened in Cuba.
But
That's the reason.
if the countries have like a free trade agreement and so on, can't you sue governments or?
No, you can do a lot of things. I mean, you can kind of, but you know, like kind of the issue is always like, well, the problem. Okay, so the government is the one who's deciding. Okay, let's make this clear. So then the government can decide to go for the agreement or for not respecting the agreement. So that's what happened, with, for example, between Chavez and the United States. He just got elected somehow. He got and decided that his debt with the United States for what was concerning the army supply was extinguished. And he owned like millions and millions of dollars. But he said, no, we don't have that debt anymore. It's the government. The government has or is the highest institutional power in the country. Can decide that simply we don't pay. Right. And they decided to pay. You might pay the consequences because you might be actually kind of armed in a different way. Like not to work, but for example by being boycotted or like excluded in trading and so on and so on. But again, what Chavez did, for example, was looking for new strategic alliances and try finding new people buying his stuff and so on and so on. It's a change in the economic policy of the government. You can do that. You can simply say, we're not going to trade with the US anymore, we're going to trade with, I don't know, another country and another set of countries and so on, and we consider our debt just done.
Isn't it more like the countries?
It is the countries. It is the
How is
countries.
this a short-term regulation? How is it? It's not gonna put you in a disadvantage. It's gonna destroy your business.
No, it's not going to destroy it. Well, I mean, okay, let's. I mean, the stuff in Turkey is a bit not what happens normally. Okay, let's.
Well, let me put it this way.
I mean,
you said
no, that's a bit extreme. I mean, normal businesses normally they might incur like in regulation which is not extremely friendly, or there is the way to change it and so on. So, for example, I give you like a practical example. Okay, so in Italy, 2 years ago, he started the reform of the labor market. Okay, it was called, the old law was called Job Act. Okay, this was basically in compliance with the new rules of the European Union and so on and so on. And it started 2 or 3 years ago and so on. Now, let's suppose that strategically I have decided to be there with a brownfield or greenfield, whatever, and in the meantime, this one is running through the different chambers to be occupied, blah blah, and so on, to be approved, and so on and so on. For example, in Italy, this one, and it's not even all approved, it took only, I think, 3 years to approve 1/3 of it. So the people who already entered there in these 3 years, and they are there in 3 years, build facilities and so on, and they started running their business and so on, they're still using the old regulation until this one will become fully approved and basically rip off the old kind of arrangement about the labor market. In the meantime, you are disadvantaged because the previous regulation was not allowing you to do many things, and it was actually imposing on you extra cost on the workers you were hiring. So for you, it is a disadvantage. That's a typical example. Or, for example, the government is, I don't know, allowing to, for example, sell different type of detergents and soap that can contain a higher level of surfactants inside, which is a special type of chemical kind of components there and so on and so on. Now, those type of products are cheaper than the product you have because your product, hello, good evening. So you have those products actually are very expensive because they require a long process of development in order to get rid of surfactants, blah, 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 and so on and so on, okay? The government is working on the idea of getting better products and so on, and it's requalifying the law about the percentage of surfactant that can be available for basically customers, and will take a year or two. In that specific moment, you are in a big disadvantage simply because you are selling a product which is a higher kind of cost, and you are selling less than the people who are selling this product at less cost. So they have cost leadership in some sense, because you kind of, unless you spend a massive amount of money explaining that very dangerous for your health and so on, so on, but it's an extra cost for you. So the government in the short term is putting you in disadvantage. Does it make sense?
No, you just got me confused when you said that the government can take all your property like this from a day to day.
No, I was talking about what happened in Turkey, because that's what happened. I mean, but this is, I mean, you don't take Turkey as a normal example, like that's a bit extreme situation at the moment. With no offense for the Turkish, but that's a bit strange. Yeah, it's a bit strange. So on, but in theory, the government with the police force and the military can take over, right?
I have a question about that. Is there any way how the company can secure kind of at least something? What, for example, if the government changes, is there any way
Not
that they
facilities.
can refund?
Arbitration, we can.
So they just lose everything in that country, basically.
Well, you lose the facilities in the sense of physical facilities, right? So of course you can back up that with financial instruments and so on and so on, but that's another thing.
So they can still operate like in different type of kind of thing?
Well, not in that country for sure. And that's part of the country risk. So that's the reason why it's extremely important we assess the country risk when we enter a country, especially a new country, because we need to assess what is the likelihood of basically, you know, somebody waking up in the morning and... Do you remember that map I gave you?
Yes.
Yeah. That one is one of the main kind of criteria. The one is kind of how transparent is the democracy, how power is distributed, how power is balanced, and so on and so on. So it's a key, right? Of course, we have countries where the risk is almost zero, because, for example, they are designed in a way that nobody can take the power on. The way they are structured. You have specific legislative kind of composition of countries in which there is no way you can take the power on from one party to the other one, for example. But you have countries that are more exposed to this, depending on institutionally how they are designed and how the power is allocated to the decision maker. Turkey is one of them, because the president has infinite power in some sense.
Shouldn't we mention there is a higher risk or maximum risk? If you have a greenfield, you invest in massively, then the risk is high. Because you can
This is the highest one.
highest risk.
It's the highest one. That's one. You might lose everything. Of course, where you have, normally thinking like this, where you have a country where you have a prominent figure which is ruling the country in a very assertive way, let's put it this way, the risk for you as an external is higher. That's the reason why, for example, in the case of Russia, you score so high. Because it depends on the distribution of power and how it's balanced, right? So that's the idea. So of course you cannot afford to lose factories, right? Okay. The paradox is that, for example, if you look at that map, China is lower risk than Russia. Notice that. Did you notice that? Did you?
Well, just because it's communism doesn't mean there's less
Oh,
chaos.
huh?
I mean,
Notice that. No, I just to tell you that sometimes, if you look at the two countries, there is, from a financial investment point of view, there is less risk for you to invest at the moment in China than in Russia. That's the perception of investors, investment banks. That's how they look at that. At the moment, they feel it's more risky for you to invest in Russia than in China. That's what the map is telling you. Then you can work out your reason.
I have a technical question
Yes.
about the question.
About the question, yes.
So it says outline what factors one needs to consider when choosing between
Yes.
GPDs and rules, which means that we will not talk about what did they do, that they did the acquisition with the, that we will just talk about like the theoretical issues and advantages.
When choosing between
When choosing.
these and three modes.
So
It
So
means
it's
that
nothing that what was done. It's just theoretically.
distinguish following international entry modes: acquisition, greenfields, investment, and joint venture. It means that the question is asking us, the first common verb is to distinguish this. So we need to talk about them, explain what they are briefly, critically analyze pros and cons of each, and so on and so on. Then we need to outline what are the factors that Walmart entering into a country need to look into when choosing between one of the others.
And by factors,
Yeah, factors. You should be an expert of factors, right? Almost like a farmer, right? Because we did factors for 10 weeks.
okay.
So you do mean
What factors?
Okay, so factor conditions.
Not just factor conditions, there are other factors, right?
labor capital, like always.
but that is a factor condition.
There's factor conditions, then what?
Purchasing power, GDP, economic growth. No?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Industry structure, rivalry, blah blah. Why the hell did we study diamonds? Those are factors, right? Determinant factors. Factors. We are almost farmers. Come on, done. So, okay, good. So those are the factors, including, and I wouldn't actually miss that one, cultural factors, which are very important.
And I just want to say that, which is, that index we saw about rating is very nice, but wouldn't you say that once one person's culture directly influences the rating of that country?
For the rating of the country.
Because wouldn't it be
Yeah, it's a logical argument, even though in that specific case they use metrics which are crossly applied in the old Western world. What you can say that it's a very Western world view in terms of investment banks with respect to investment. That one is Alliance, which is basically joined with Deutsche Bank, and then you have like Goldman Sachs. If you can download the stuff, you have the same metrics applied there. You can say it's more like the Western world view, which is Europe and United States of basically the world, across the world. So they see, for example, as a danger in terms of investment. Okay, so let's do a small break.
too small. Sounds pretty